Okay. Hi there, Sally. How you doing? How's things? So, right now I'm experimenting a bit with YouTube. So I'm just trying to validate YouTube is working properly. Yeah. Good man. Nice to catch a bit of stream during lunch break. Nice. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. How's things? TBD appeared. Hi, Carney. How you doing? Good day. Just about to ask about any interesting projects Sally's working on. Or I know what you're working on, Canny. Also, my thing is that my Fluffle lost his favorite ball, so he said, "Oh, our two are so strong and destructive that they don't have time to have favorites because they're pretty much chewed up before they become favorite." But yeah. Okay, what was I doing? There was something I was missing. I think planning. Was it planning didn't have an endpoint? No, that has service discovery address. Tenant management, service discovery address. You too. The little dog across the street just started barking, and my two immediately were like, rah, 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 rah. He's going to the river with his ball before I realised I tried to stop him, but I was saying stop. He dropped the ball, and inertia did the rest to drop it in the river. Ah. They take that sort of stuff very personally as well. I know it's weird when you see them sulking, like, I lost my toy, or because with brother and sister, we have a problem where if one's playing with something, the other one doesn't want to play with a different toy. They want to play with the toy that one's playing with. So then it starts a fight, and we have to be very careful and watch them, because if they get too violent, you have to calm them down, because they don't know their own strength. But yeah, it's sad when they hit that. Okay. I forgot I'm actually using Redis for this as well. Okay, so let's get the where are you? Visual Studio Code. That's what I want to start up here. Let's get this started up, and let's open Liquid Sky Docker stuff. We train our dogs in the group. Meanwhile, that toy belongs to dogs, and other dogs aren't allowed to touch it at all. Yeah. Our biggest problem right now is because of the breed of our dogs, they're pit mixes. They're not allowed to go to a lot of things, so we're not allowed to put them into kind of socialization classes, because they're deemed as violent dogs. They're not violent themselves, but because the breed is kind of vilified, we have limits on what we can actually send them to, which is sad, because they're treated like they're violent and they're just big friendly animals, and it kind of because you can't socialize them, it creates a problem. So yeah, services PS1 up. So we do Redis. So I'm only using Redis for the subscriptions of the GraphQL system. Redis is something I want to look into using more widely. But right now it's used by GraphQL. Just for the subscriptions. It would be kind of cool if it could do more. Yeah, figure that out. Mr. Jones, good afternoon. SQL Server, Kafka, RabbitMQ. No, yeah, RabbitMQ. Console. That's it for now. So that, I don't know if you've seen it before. This is a little script I have that just goes and looks at these directories and gets the Docker Compose and starts them up and creates data directories. So there's a environment file, so I can say where the data goes, and that sets that. The assumption being that I'd never have two of these systems running at once. So as I'm working on one system, I bring down, so that data directory will differ, but the environment variable doesn't change. So I couldn't actually have two of the systems up and running at once, otherwise I'd conflict and cause problems. And I didn't bring down this one, so that's a problem. So that's going to cause me, as I just said. So the problem there is now I've corrupted the database. Services.ps1 down. So that has likely corrupted the database for this, because my because the data directory is the same. Or maybe not. SQL Server. Let's see if that works. Wow, Kafka actually started up though, all fully. That's good. That normally doesn't happen. Let's go see if the SQL Server's there. So Liquid Sky, this window. Did everything live? Everything lived. Okay, so there we go. There's our database. You can install a plugin, but I'm not restarting for it. So let's get this started. So next Monday, I can't decide whether I want to do a longer stream. So Monday and Tuesday next week, I have off work. A longer stream and kind of mix it up, because obviously water drink water. I'm not going to do a long WDW stream because there's just not. I just do too much in one stream, and that would make it harder to catch up with. An alternative I thought about, and I kind of do want to do it, is I might just set up my Mr. FPGA and maybe play some retro games on stream. It's tempting because it is my birthday, and I'm like, I want to do something, so I am thinking about that. I'd love to be able to hook up, kind of join the two worlds and do some development, but because one idea I do have is allowing, there's a library that Rambling Geek found that allows you to basically barcode scan. Well, he found it because he was watching a retro cave video on. They basically set it up so you could barcode scan the back of a box, and it would launch the game in an emulator in the Mister FPGA, which I thought was very cool, and that'd be very awesome to have as another project. BF Lan? How do you want me to pronounce that name? I'm struggling with the pronunciation. BF Lan. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. Thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that. So yeah, my thought was maybe BFY. Okay. Well, welcome in. Thank you very much for the follow. So what my thought was, what I could do is kind of use that same technique, but allow kind of a chat voted game selection. So kind of provide some options and then kind of put chat vote in there. But I think that would take me a lot more development than I have time. So maybe I'll do a bit of a mix of both, do a bit of dev on Monday and then do a bit of retro gaming. I had no idea what I would play. That's the big problem right now. The Mister has NES, Super NES, Genesis, Sega CD, Sega 32X, TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine. I think that's it right now, the cores that I have installed. But yeah, so there's a lot of games. Yeah. Okay, so that's for Monday. On with this. So what I'm doing right now is last week, essentially, yes, right now, yes, has. Right now, this is I refer to it as an Agile management platform. Basically, I've spent years working in tools like Jira, and there's some things that I think we could do differently. So I'm building a platform myself. This is a distributed system. It's using Kafka and mass transit for service bus requirements. We'll be using a bit of other technologies mixed in. Basically, the focus is very much on notifications and alerting. So I'm leaning very much into that whole distributed messaging thing and making sure that I can scale the system out. Let's close that one. Let's cut down on some of these windows here. He says as no idea. The sky draw's running. Okay, so as pictures are better for me. The way this is currently working is I have components. So I'm not going to say microservices because they're kind of groups of behavior. There are many services, one-to-many services under each one of these. So closer, yeah. We were debating the modular monolith, or discussing the modular monolith, like what it really entails and what this fits in. Modular monolith is probably closer, but you know, putting labels on things kind of tends to you know, as it's intended to, kind of guides how people expect that to go based upon their understanding of that design, right? And there's so many different ways of developing software. Service-oriented architecture. Yeah. I mean, regardless, it is a distributed system. So we have these components, so planning, ticketing, tenant management. The data is entered into these. These store the right data. I don't really like modular monoliths. It brings with it strange problems that need to be solved, more ridiculous problems than microservices. I'd be interested to know the strange problems you're talking about. See if I've experienced them or not. I have worked with things like Kafka and Service Bus for several years, but this is something I've not really tackled this way before. So, and I'm open to learning and growing here, right? So, if you have the time and the chance, I would really appreciate if you can elaborate on the strange problems. So basically, each one of these, I write into it, it publishes its data. This data is then published out as a Kafka topic, and then I can consume that in the read database. So the client is pulling its data from a GraphQL API and adding its data into the API layer. So these databases have never been used for write. They only ever be read. Sorry, they only ever been used for write and storing. They are the sources of truth of this data, right? So the system is kind of right now built around this database, which is a collation of this data from the Kafka thing. And in the future, more things will come and add Elasticsearch, etc. Although I just learned that Elasticsearch is not quite as easy as it used to be to add. So I might have to look for alternatives for search. But the concept is very much around notifications. So I'm definitely leaning into the messaging aspect of the technologies. And what I did last week was I have a set of libraries that I've built around some of these things like Kafka, and I wasn't using it in this project. So what I've done is I've actually gone and ripped out the kind of semi-implemented pieces of that and now consume that library. So what I'm doing right now is testing that and validating that's working before moving forward. Okay, so actually I'd probably get rid of that at this point. We have the Angular app, right? So the app itself is all there. So we can probably get rid of placeholder app front end at this point. I don't need that anymore. Nothing must have a dependency on that. 44 projects for point down. Nice. Can remove that. I've got to find the setting. So when I run the application, I used to have all the things run in the services panel, which was nice because it gives you kind of more information. And one day I hit a pop-up that said, "Don't do that." And now it's gone and I can't get it back. Okay, so let's run this all. Oh no. No. Yeah, I thought that would run. Okay, full stack. So like these run down here, but I don't get information. I have to go to the debug for that. There you go. Is that 1 or 2? So as part of this refactoring, what I did is I introduced there's several there, isn't there? Stop. I think view is one of them. I introduced as part of the refactoring a host 8500. Oh, yeah, that'll be necessary.
Let's get that stored somewhere. Kafka configuration. So I actually added the ability for this to store these common things in here. So I've got this Kafka configuration. Right now it'll just load topics, but yeah. This is where I hope that I didn't remove all the feature, all the things yet. Source. I do, yes. I stream Monday through Friday, 7 or 9 a.m. Eastern, and then I do some random streams on weekends. On Mondays and Tuesdays, I work on a project that is more kind of viewer friendly or even beginner friendly, kind of aimed at giving the ability to practice with Git or talk about the software, mess around with design, etc. That's a project called Water Drink Water. And then on Wednesday through Friday, I work on this. I try and work on this offline as well. This is not an open source project, but it's one I do share a lot of development with and components of. Where is the... I have to remove the app settings at some point. I think it's... Did I make it as a different commit? Okay, let's go here. Let's go here. Git, show history. There we go. That's what I want. So to try and consolidate this down, what I've done is I've moved the Kafka topics configuration into console, which means when the services start up, I have one place. So it doesn't matter if this is all loaded for everything, even if a message isn't consumed, because it's actually the application configures it. It's just this has to be available for it because it gives a lookup of the event type to the actual topic name. So that's why that's necessary. And then what I'm going to do is I have a... Yeah, and I'm more than happy to discuss this. This stream isn't necessarily about me being productive. This is about me sharing the way I develop software, and I'm not saying I'm right, wrong, or even good. But what I want to do is share. This is application development. This is my development, and I'm always open to learning and growing. So. Having discussions around, I don't like this, I like this, here's a way to do this, that's always acceptable on this stream. So I do store the Ocelot configuration in the root directory. I think I'm going to store the Kafka configuration in the same other way right this second. Just because that's easier to recall quickly if I need it. So we'll add that there. So let's find out what the actual number of errors are. So what's happening is when it starts up, it's retrieving its list of topics from console. It looks like connection string property has not been initialized, so there's a bug there, and this is in tickets, consumers, and that's in tickets. Okay, so tickets and tickets consumers has some issues. Yeah, there is also a Discord that anyone's more than welcome to join, where if there's any other resources, questions, thoughts, etc. I kind of share videos as I find them, thoughts on architecture, design, etc. Okay, so tickets. Tickets is the one with the problem. So consumers first. So my bet is that I refer to console address here. I don't have console address here. No. So when I'm not using console, because console, the way console works is, and actually it wouldn't be, would it be bad to have these in there? Yeah, I only have the API endpoints in there. So console is used as a service discovery and a key value store, right? It has those features built in. Now, if I'm actually using console, I have a node here for console, but if I don't, then I have to add something to store it. Console address. Is there really a need to use console? So, I use console because I'm using Ocelot for API Gateway. This comes from, I was tinkering with the project last year, and I was tinkering with like the distributed services stuff, and I then put it to Kubernetes. And now I know that if I go to Kubernetes, Kubernetes has things that I need in console. Well, it has a service discovery piece in there, but the API gateway Ocelot that I'm using kind of can be backed by console, so that really makes it easy for this. So the routing configuration, which is wrong now, that's reset itself as well, and that's why I store it here. I'm glad I checked that then. So the routing configuration is stored in Ocelot as well, in console. So when Ocelot starts up, it pulls its configuration from here, and it just gives me this service discovery, so I don't have to have ports and hard coded everywhere, which is nice. So that's the primary reason for console. The secondary is the key value store. And again, if I actually move to Kubernetes and stuff, then there are options in there that I don't have to use console, right? But I've not learned my way around that yet. So console address there now, and then tickets. This is the first time I've seen Ocelot used this way. It looks cool. It's I am Kafka Outbox. Okay, I'm kind of learning my way a lot through it. Like I've done a lot of software development, but I've not done any real cloud deployment stuff, and I know that this sort of technology best lends itself to that sort of that world. So last year I picked up a little AMD box and built out a little micro KS box and kind of built it so I could deploy to it. So I went through the entire deployment piece and learning how to distribute the services. So there's a lot of those pieces in this. And I intend to figure out the deployment story at some point, right? That's the challenge. It's great to develop this, but how do I deploy it? And unfortunately these days, as a solo developer, this is going to be quite the challenge. But considering what I am building something in one application stack just doesn't feel right either. So the distributed system stuff feels comfortable to me, even though I know that I've got a challenge when it comes to my growth, the deployment, etc. So let's see if all this runs now. So I pulled in the Kafka library because I wanted to use Outbox finally. So I didn't have Kafka Outbox implemented, but now this should have. created a Kafka messaging outbox. So when things happen, they'll get stored here. And now I should be able to produce messages. Tickets will probably have one as well. Oh no, it won't need an outbox yet. Is tenant management the only one with an outbox so far? I suppose it is. No, the others should have it. Planning produces. So essentially I can get rid of these now. Because what happens is it loads up this configuration and then merges in the topics. So from console. Add pool, DB context. Add Kafka. I'm missing it. Yeah, I'm missing it. So app. Compute. So this may or may not be an anti-pattern, this one. But it kind of works for the transactional boundaries. The transactional problems that I experienced. So I'm using mediator within the services. So when I have an endpoint, I send a command. That command is then handled and does its thing. If I'm being accurate, I'm kind of combining the entity and an aggregate into one right now because I do more in these things than just the entity. But I'm trying to learn more about how to design that properly. But right now, the command handler will, create the actual project. In there, an event will be added. A domain event will be added. When this object is actually saved and committed to the database, it will publish a domain event. If I have many things happening that I need to roll back, I can wrap everything in a transaction. But then if I've sent those commands and they're executed, they'll be doing things as well. So if they communicate to Kafka, etc., that message could go out. So what I wanted to do is back that up, which meant that I introduced an outbox to the mediator thing as well. So when mediator publishes a notification, there's actually an outbox store for that, so that doesn't get processed until everything's committed to the database. Still doesn't feel 100% correct, but it works very, very well and does give me that security of knowing that until I actually commit to the database, any notifications I published won't actually be consumed. So that was planning. That was missing a connection string. And missing... Oh no, that wasn't missing a connection string. That was missing this. And... well, what else should have had it? Tickets I don't care about right this second. That's kind of sat there waiting. Tenant management got it. So it's only planning items that really needs it right now. So if we start up again, planning items should now have a Kafka outbox. So doing this, it actually runs the migration and builds a table. So this should... there you go. Okay, that's better. So now everything's up and running. Let's see if the app runs. So let's start Edge. I don't want Edge. I want Chrome. Idiot. So this is going to be a large white screen, I'm afraid, but or white tail screen. So we can sign in. I still don't remember the password. It's got to be a joke at this point. So the concept is we have planning. Planning items. So, I've worked for years in ticketing systems being ticketing, story planning, stories being tracked, work being to be done, being tracked in something like Jira. And oftentimes we have these stories that sit there in the backlog because people put them in, oh, we need to do that later, etc. And they sit there in this backlog, and the backlog gets stale. And we have many teams, and then those backlogs combined are hundreds and hundreds of items, some of which, that work is now no longer necessary. It is long since forgotten about, or, it just never came to fruition. So what I've introduced is a concept in the middle of a planning piece. And I haven't used, I know Monday.com is a little bit more diverse in its functionality, but I haven't used it. So this may not be new, but it is something that I haven't done before. So it's kind of something that I want to focus on. So planning is, product management would come in and they need to get requirements together. They need to build out what is, what they're actually trying to decide. And then the developers could work with them to kind of figure out, okay, well, actually, you need to know this, and build up this thing. So it doesn't become a story until it's got some more meat on the bones as such. And then they'll be able to add requirements to that. And these requirements right now are very simplistic. I need to start, once I get to a point where I can build out the application, use the application myself to build out my application, then these will start to look a bit more realistic. But right now, it's basically, these are kind of the requirements that come with this planning item. So the planning item could be, larger in such a, it could be, I want to add the ability to have a user trigger, notifications on certain things happening or something like that, right? That's a little bit large for one story, but they could define that as a planning item and then add the requirements. And the idea will be that the development team can sit down with them and say, okay, well, now you want to make that a story. Well, requirement 1, 2, and 3, that is actually one story. We'll take that as a story, and they can select them and make them an actual story and kind of use the requirements to build out actual stories that are produced. One of the key concepts of one of the things that this application kind of revolves around is this concept of a review date. So this date here is not when this was added. It is an actual review date. And the idea is you will never be able to not set a review date, and it will always have to be in the future when an item is active. So that review date will tell people, hey, this has gone past the due date, right? So it's not a completion date. It's not a goal date. It's a, when do you want to be notified? When should this not get passed before we do something about it, right? And people will then be able to subscribe to these things. So the idea is very much around keeping the developer away from having to do all this sort of stuff, right? Oh, where are we with that feature? Or where are we with that feature, right? I want to make it so the system is able to tell people that care about those things where those things are when they change state. And if a review date is too far out, then obviously you could just move everything out to the end of next year and then not worry about it, right? But I want to put rules in place ultimately that prevent that from happening. So the organization themselves could actually configure this to say, okay, you can't set a review date out more than 1 month. You can't set a review date, greater than 2 weeks past the end of whatever, right? So, the notifications system, it'll be an incredibly complex piece because, you got to avoid spamming people. So yeah, the requirements are there. So what I need to do now is validate that this all works. So let's see. Planning item, create unique, planning item is unique identifier on planning items. When a planning item is added to a project, it should be assigned an increment, assigned an identifier. Read.
this identifier should prefix a unique counter. I should not expect to see so ultimately this is going to be a larger bot, right? This is going to be more about writing something. This is just to fill in, so I've got something to put in there. I should expect to see the same and stories, i.e. PRJ 00, PRJ 1 points. PRJ 2 idea story. And then review that on 05, happy mail, 10/2024. And the assigned user right now, me, and the project would be Liquid Sky. So when I create that, what should happen is that gets saved. And what we should see is in planning items, there's our integration event being published. That's awesome. To make sure everything's wired up properly. Localhost 8000. No, not that one. Where is it? Probably got the window open because I don't close anything. No. Nope. Yes, I have a problem with Windows being open, by the way. Localhost 8000. Is it 8000 or is it? Where is it? I might not have started up again yet. No, I haven't started up. Where's the tool? Did I put it in this one? I didn't put it in here yet. I'm not going to panic about it right now. I've got Kafka tool. There's a web UI that I use that is a little easier to use on stream. Oh, that broke. So I bet that isn't processed. Yeah. So what's happening is in planning. So this is why I introduced the Outbox, right? This is exactly what it's actually. It's not good, but it's not bad either. So this this Kafka messaging Outbox, I bet it errored somewhere along the line. This is polling every 10 seconds, by the way. So it's going to poll this Outbox and this Outbox every 10 seconds. There's independent services running that monitors those things. Planning items. Yeah, there you go. See, it's failing because the topics are not there, right? So I reset Kafka, which means that now there's no topics. So I need to go and create a topic. So if I do liquid sky.planning items, I think it is. And again, we'll confirm that in a second before we actually push that. So I don't have it. I don't even have the topic in there. So let's go and see what happens. This will probably fail now because this won't reload. So let's stop that running. I'd love to say that it would just work, but the problem is that if the topic was listed in here, awesome, that would work fine. But because it's not here, that's not going to reload when I change this. That will be a lot more work to do. So when I change that, it's not going to update the topic list, which means the topic list has already been loading, which means I can't ever get to that planning item. And that's what I need, this one here. So I'm going to remove that so I don't end up with that and there, and then there. That bugs me. Format document. Let's run.
Okay, so that's now saved there, right? So now when I start up, I need to create that planning items topic, right? Let me just open that. So planning items is my topic. So I go back over here and add planning items. And because I'm local dev, I only need one partition. I don't have to worry about scale out or anything here. I don't have to configure the partitions. But let's make sure those other ones are there anyway, because then we don't end up with some problems there. So create topic, liquid sky.projects. Liquid sky users. Yeah, as always, if you're watching and you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, feel free. I don't mind discussing this. I don't mind if you can give me positive feedback, that's great. If you can give me negative feedback, that's also great, as long as you can help me understand why. That's all I ask. Because I'm always afraid of developing in a bubble, right? My experience is my experience, the things I built, the things I understand, and we all have different experiences, which means I learn things. Your PHP knowledge is second to none, second to a lot of people. But thank you very much for the compliment. String update. So these are just JSON serialized. I'm not using Kafka schema or anything yet. That is a whole different challenge. There you go. They're all updated. That's my feedback. Well, thank you very much. You'd be sorry if I start doing PHP on stream. Okay, so this should load up now, and actually that message should then send, right? That's the goal, right? So this should actually change to processed. That's the ideal outcome. There you go. So now that message got sent. So what we should see is in view, we should have that planning item. And there we go. So now if I refresh the UI, that's still there, right? I probably should have fed a lorem ipsum into that to know what that looked like, because that's kind of silly, isn't it? I seem to have both on here and in here. I mean, again, it doesn't matter. I don't want this to be my final UI. It's something I want to figure out. But there we go. So the Outbox is working. All my effort was not wasted. Not perfect yet, but it's better than nothing. That's still worrying me that wasn't. Because when it started up and consumed, that notification should have come in. So a new requirement actually. This will also trigger an event. So new requirement. Project identifier.
is visible on screen on the screen. The project identifier should be visible. And ultimately, this piece here, you'll be able to add images and other things, docs, to this requirement to support this individual requirement. And again, the goal is to try and kind of guide a product team through the process of actually identifying what they actually want, right? And being able to talk to a development team and say, hey, this is what we are laying out as this story, or this set of stories. What do you think? Do you think these fit in the same story? Do you think, conversation, discussion, etc. is a much needed part of software development. You can't just be given, here's a list of things to do, go off and do it. You need to be able to relay, here's what I want, and the developers be able to say, here's what we can give you, here's the challenges of what you want, and work and refine that. And that's what this is intended to do. So it doesn't become an actual piece of work to be done. People can see that planning is in progress, that things are happening, that things are being added. You might be wanting to notified when a new requirement's added to a store or to an item. You might want to be notified when the review date expires. You might want to be notified when it's updated or when it's finished or whatever. If it's finished and no stories were produced, then why is it finished, right? What does its notes look like, etc. So there's all sorts of things you might want to care about. And that's kind of what I'm leading into. But it means that this planning item can be evolved without actually putting it into a backlog of work that it can then get lost in, right? And the reminder date, the review date thing is aimed at making sure that people just can't forget about it. That it's constantly, hey, this is the stuff you need to work on, right? So that's why I'm building it the way I'm building it. Should be visible on the list. In the top right corner. Right, so I add the requirement, it gets saved there. Again, usability wise, that's not necessarily going to be the way I want to do it. You might want to add multiple requirements, etc. But we got some notifications, so the requirements changed. And we got 3 notifications for the requirements changed. That's interesting. We shouldn't have been told that it would change 3 times, but we did. And that's loaded, so that requirement made it through. So Kafka's running. We have an Outbox here. So we published right now. Well, record aggregates. Value editor there. Oh. That's weird. It used to. Huh. I don't know about it. But the requirements right now, the requirements are added in there. I think that's going to change. Having the requirements in there is good now, but once that gets to a certain point, the Kafka message limit is going to hit, and I don't want to have a problem with that, right? So as much as I like that, actually that didn't process. How did that not process? That's worrying. Sequence contains more than one element. Oh. Did I use the key? Oh, I used the key. I'm an idiot. I used the key.
So when I retrieve the next message, so in the SQL Outbox implementation, I I add a new Outbox message content, and then when I query it, I retrieve an Outbox message which has key, date added, and event. I then use the key to match that back up. Yeah, that can't happen, because the key is not unique. The key is the identifier of the object I'm working with. What's more interesting there is how did that... Oh, because I fired the first message. No. It should have broken. Either way, I do have an answer for this. So the Outbox, what I did is I produced a specific, I kind of created an in-memory message, right, which had the GUID ID. So it's not like I have no precedent for this. So what we'll do is we create a specific subclass that has the ID of the table. So it's an Outbox message with an ID on it, and then we are able to use that. So we'll use the same pattern down here. So this is a SQL Outbox message. Takes an int ID. So it's used internally. And then what we'll do is we'll make a... Well, how do I use it over here? A message. I retrieve the message. Well, I'll start a new one of them there. And then I pull it out there. So yeah, I've got to do... And that's going to be... message.id. Is that an integer? Yeah, that's the integer. So now m.id equals message.id, and that. Now, why don't I like that? Because the Outbox message always has an ID property. No. Property ID cannot implement property from interface I in memory Outbox. Oh. I SQL message SQL Outbox message. If only I could read. Would definitely help things, right? So basically, if message is not return, right, then that is SQL message, right? So if for whatever reason we try committing a message that is not of the right type, we will bail out. And again, if we don't get it, now this failed because it's a single default. So had I done first to default, which would be quicker, right? Obviously, single default is also obviously going to do. And do I commit to that? First to default's much faster. I think it is a good idea. And then that makes sense. It's private internal. I shouldn't be doing some sort of crazy inheritance in here. So mark it as sealed, so I can't inherit from it. It's the end of the line, which is truthful. So just being good about intent. Okay, so still made the interface. That still works. Now, when I tested this, my test is weak because my test only publishes one message. Right? So var key equals GUID, and then let's do key there, and then let's await publisher.publish async key new. Let's just make that and do hello another world. Right. So my test was weak, which meant that that broke. So this should still run. And this produces the actual message, so that's fine. Then we should have two messages in there. And if we go to string data, there's that one. There's that one. There we go. Okay, so that's working. Using test containers was a really good choice for this. That does give me confidence that it's working. And again, I know it was working before, but I was only sending one message, which meant that I was never validating that scenario. So right now, I can be confident that I'm validating that scenario. The only other thing I want to do there is maybe can you do indexes on? Yes. K goes to K dot new. K goes to K dot ID. I'll just do K. K dot ID. K dot key. K dot date processed. IDX. That works. So now I need to build a migration for that. Add migration, add index for Outbox. Oh, the one thing I didn't check, and this is going to be critical. Oh, I suppose it doesn't matter, does it? So different Okay. So the migrations share an EF migrations history, but they have a unique down to the year, month, day, hour, minute, second. The likelihood of those two conflicting is very minimal. That would be quite the collision. So I'm not panicked about that right now. But basically, the migrations will get output there. So I just created that one now. So that's fine. So I should have in the actual migrations, yeah, create index, ID key processed. I mean, that's primary key, so that shouldn't really hurt. I should be able to just use the primary key. Do I need that? No, I don't need that. I don't need it. Roll back them. It's an excessive index. There's no point in creating it. It's more work than it needs to be, and it's yeah. So yeah, I don't think that's necessary. So what we do is we go back to here. This doesn't matter, right? It's just kind of, I've got the ID. The ID's been pulled at this point and built into this message, right? So I have the unique key of the table, so I might as well just use that. First, the default always bugs me because it reads like I intend there to be multiple. So I always read intent from it, but I do get it that single default is slower because it doesn't just stop. It has to check to see if it exists more than once, which means it'll do a scan. So first we'll drop out the moment it hits it, which is the quickest way. So okay, so add ID column as identifier for Outbox messages. This will work, right? So when I actually push this, it will actually work. So those messages that were failing will pass because it'll retrieve it, right? It'll retrieve it with the ID. It's not like I've got it stuck in some weird state. So these messages that were, yeah. So what happened was it pushed this one again, I think. Because I didn't have a data process check on it, so it just pushed that one. No, again, no, it can't have done because it said it had a single default, which means it should have just bailed out. But I got the notification. That's what's confusing me. I got the notification. Okay, so now I have to wait. TBD develop. Again, this library is actually open source. I try to make sure that if there's things that I use, things that I build, that you might find useful if you're developing, with Kafka or whatever, I do open source these pieces. So you're more than welcome to go check out that library. And I just put a new command in there. So ! Shared. We'll give you the links. I've got to get better documentation on this one. Yeah. So that should have been a minute ago. Yeah. So let's create a release. Draft new release. 0.0.8. Correction on retrieving message by the SQL Outbox. This release corrects a mistake using a key to retrieve the message from the Outbox. Okay. When we publish the release, that will actually publish the NuGet packages, and I'll have to wait a little while for them to become available. So yeah, this is an open source library, so I have all the stuff that I'm using for Kafka inside of the main project now is transitioned over to using that library, which cut down. So I've now been able to cut 4 projects out of this main application. So messaging right now is just an events library, so it's kind of shared. I break them down into integration and service. So I do use mass transit. So these are more events, and Kafka is still something that, you know, there's a lot of opinions on how to use it. I posted one of the videos in Discord by Code Opinion, Derek Comartin. He's kind of like debunking the 5 use cases of Kafka, etc. And I definitely fall into one of those use cases. But, you know, no one's ever shown me a different way of using it, and it works perfectly for my needs, right? So the way Kafka's doing this is when I've got a piece of information and I want to share it to other parts of the system, I don't want to know what other parts care, because my system is my system. I just want to publish the fact that this entity has been updated or changed in some way. So I publish the current shareable state of the entity, right? If there's internal fields private to the component that I'm in, I don't publish them, obviously, but this publishes the state of the entity. It's up to consumer systems to figure out what they want to do with that, how they want to consume it. It does give me great flexibility in the future for expanding the system. So I kind of like the way the integration events work. And then the service right now, these are events within the service bus. So when I get the way that works is when I retrieve from the consumer side, actually it comes from the application, I think. When the application receives a planning item, right, I publish the message bus. And this publishes an event, which is one of these events, say planning item was updated, right, and that allows me to tell other things, you know, oh, by the way, you might want to do something with this, right? So in this instance right now, I'm just consuming it here in the view, and basically that just consumes that event, and this is actually GraphQL. The sender in this case is GraphQL. So I'm actually publishing a notification to a GraphQL subscription, and that's what allows me to publish that down. So in the future, I'll be able to add more notifications down to the client through that same thing in the GraphQL notification piece. Target user, target identifier, right? So I can publish a global notification and then let the client decide, oh, am I this person? Do I need to care about this?
or I can actually decide at this level, right? Oh, who's it intended for, by the way? So I do have some stuff in there to filter that out. So integration and service events, like or dislike. I've yet to see someone say, hey, here's how you should be using Kafka, and by the way, you're using it completely wrong, and here's how to actually go about it. So one day, maybe I'll get that education. That being said, I've actually had discussions with Confluent and shown them what we've done, and there was absolutely zero pushback on how we were using it. So maybe no comment there is sufficient. Mass Transit. This eventually will become its own library. I'm actually considering whether I actually can keep this as one the Kafka extensions library as one library, because obviously there's mediator Outbox as well, which is almost identical in behavior. Or rather, I create an Outbox implementation that works off a core service and kind of create a messaging toolbox, right? So then I can put all these things under there. Because you can still create different NuGet packages, right? There's no reason to say you can't use one or the other. But yeah, I'm contemplating creating a messaging toolbox that has the mediator pieces, the Kafka pieces, the mass transit pieces that I'm using. Mass transit requires the least amount of interaction here. All I'm doing is just configuring it, and this publisher is a dumb publisher, just so that I can abstract the iBus into my own thing, and that might not be necessary, right? That's kind of like, what happens if my SQL Server, if I decide to switch to Oracle from SQL Server, or I decide to switch to Postgre, it doesn't often happen, and you're going to have to change things if it does. So I might do better to lean into the fact that I actually am using Mass Transit. I just kind of abstracted it right now. I'm not doing point to point yet. That's one of the other features that I need to work on when I get back around on planning. Planning right now has an API, which is horrendous. Well, it's not horrendous. It just is a request response style API. So if this is not available, then the process fails. So yeah. Okay, let's give it a try. Let's see if that has been enough time to update. Well, definitely got some updates. There you go, 0.8. Okay, so let's try running that now, and our event should fire through and things should work. That's disconnected, so there's no way that's going to work. There you go, that processed. 12:26, yep. Everything's UTC. So our requirements, I mean, it got there. That's really annoying. That's actually bugging me why that got there 27 minutes ago. That shouldn't have got there. Oh well. It's working now. It's not failing. That's good. We have progress.
Let's close that down, the Kafka extensions library. Let's shut that down for right a second. Let's get all this committed and merged. Store Kafka configuration for topics by console. And 95 files. Some of them are removed, so let's do that one first. Throw away app folder. Remove unnecessary client front end. That was initially so I could test logging in and getting user privileges and stuff working. So that was literally just an Angular app with a button. Okay, and what is the rest? Project updates, unit tests in there. Project updates, unit tests in there. Project updates, unit tests in there. Unit tests. So let's go through and remove, so I don't end up with a confusion, right? One of the, by having the Kafka like this, it does mean this is a little easier to read, but I do need to make sure I don't have leftovers there. Teams isn't a project that gets started right now. That's intended to be a different thing. Hey Palm, good morning. How are you doing? Tickets, app settings. Let's remove. Yep, we removed it from there. Consumers, app settings. Let's remove that. Yep, that's working. Ticket HTTP we'll worry about later. View, app settings. No Kafka there. No. Topics there. Okay. I think we're good in that respect. Okay, so let's get this committed. Yeah, so last week I realized that my APIs had diverged a little bit in between changes, but now because I've gone back and added that key thing in there, the API is almost identical. So literally this was just a swap out from shared contracts to abstractions. And yeah. Now, my namespacing is janky internally. I like this format, right? I personally don't like, I wouldn't want TBD develop tickets infrastructure consumers, or these, because if you look at them that way, when you're looking at something with this number of projects, that gets really kind of, you have to move all the way to the right to understand what project you're working in. So I name all my projects this way, right? In lowercase style. I'm grouping them using the solution folders into their component pieces and laying them out. It is a very common standard, and I get it, to do this kind of namespacing. The namespace and the assembly, or the root namespace and the assembly name often line up. Because I'm too lazy to go through and actually namespace these, I end up with some weird lowercase usings here. So you can see it worse. It's actually, these ones kind of identify it worse because the hyphens and dots get converted to periods, right? Underscores. Sorry, not periods. And you can see when I use a dot, which I shouldn't, I'm inconsistent here, right? This needs to get corrected, but I'm not going to do it as part of this. But I don't go through and then name them this way. Now, because this is a shared library, I've gone through and actually namespaced it, because that would be a horrible user experience if it was just Kafka underscore abstractions, right? Because that could be what's the word?
I don't mean promiscuous. That's not the right word. I'll work on that. Not as horrible as GUIDs for namespaces. No, it's horrible. Now, one day maybe I'll go through and rename space everything behind the scenes, because it's nothing preventing me from doing it, right? I can go in here and name these, right? So it's the assembler name and the root namespace, right? But oftentimes it would be TBD develop dot tenant management. Actually, this would be liquid sky dot tenant management dot domains, right? So I could go through and do that. I'm not going to do it right this second. It doesn't. This doesn't bother me at all. This I prefer. That's now bugging me. So I did planning -domain there. I did tickets -domain there. I did view -domain there. I did tenant management dot domain there. Rename project folder, rename comments and strings. Thank you, tooling. Hi Hades, how you doing? I'm okay. I'm getting things working. So let's do this. Refactor this. Adjust namespaces. That's going to break in a minute. Good. Good to hear it. That namespace is going to be wrong. Refactor this. Adjust namespaces. Really? I just renamed the root namespace to that and it didn't change anything. Do we need to talk about how the root namespace works? Because you've kind of not done that. Always nice when things start working. Absolutely, yeah. Okay. Tenant management dot domain in the solution. Am I missing something? No, that definitely says dot domain. Yeah, that definitely says dot domain. Solution. Domain.tense. I'm confused. Let's create a new file in there. Class sample. Oh. That is completely broken now. What magic did I do in the others then? Properties. Oh. That would be that, wouldn't it? Right. Planning items domain. Tenant underscore, yeah. Now let's see if this allows me to do this. Refactor, adjust namespaces. There we go. That looks healthy, doesn't it? Refactor this. Adjust namespaces.
Let's see if it builds and runs still. That previous statement about working might be now incorrect, but yeah, we'll find that out in a second. Okay, so let's run that up. Let's see what happens. Oh, that reminds me. I cannot run up until 9 a.m. this morning. I need to jump off before 9. That I have to remember. I have a doctor's appointment. So, yeah. Okay, so that's up and running. And now we should be able to go into here and retrieve items. Okay, so let's just refresh. If you don't refresh, that's using the store, the signal store. So there's no noise there. Yeah, that's working for right this second. It's bugging me. I don't like the UI. I really want to change it, but I'm like, I cannot spend that time. I just need to move forward and get features working now. This is going to be something that I'm scared to do because I don't know what the right design for this is. And I'm not liking that I'm scared of it. But everything I can come up with feels kind of janky, right? So to get a unique identifier, what I need to question is, have I put this in the correct place? So right now, projects exist at the tenant management level. They exist at the tenant management level because they are a tenant concern that spans any other group, right? I'm cursing out my new employer's documentation standards. Feels like I'm creating a diagram for the sake of a checkbox that no one will ever reference. Ooh. Well, documentation. Ouch. Gotta love healthcare systems. Yeah, I can imagine that's pretty complicated. That's the sort of industry that I feel would be very much CYA. Cover your you're behind. So I'd imagine there's a lot of accountability and stuff necessary there. I'm honest, I really, really want to get away from organizations that are more about the blame and chasing the next dollar. I mean, every organization has to chase the dollar, right? Or the pound, or the euro, or whatever you're chasing, right? You have to chase the next paycheck. But I really would love to work for an organization where that's not put right in front of everything else. Like there's no care or consideration given to the quality of what you're producing and how to build it. Like for me, this architecture starts to make more sense as I think about what I want to do in the future, right? With things I can do, things that are available to me, because I'm not just globbing everything into one application. Producing more information, producing different views of the data, producing entirely different systems off of the data are all possible because it's built to be it's built in a componentized manner. So this makes more and more sense to me as far as development goes. Is it more complicated? Absolutely. But, a lot of applications I've worked in have just been kind of these monoliths that you just keep adding more into. And then we talk about, how do we improve that? Well, it's hard to improve when everyone's scared of change. Micromonoliths. I mean, even this runs that risk, right? But again, my entire thought is, I wanna be able to say, hey, this is too big. Break it out now, because the application is a bunch of commands. It's not difficult to do that, right? So I just reconstitute the commands and move them around and extend the system so it's repeatable. There's a clear focus on single responsibility. These are all unit testable. There's all sorts of benefits, but there's a high cognitive load with building something like this, right? As a solo developer, that's a lot of moving parts. Okay, I'm going to commit all of this in one go, all 107 files. For the most part, it's all refactoring. Okay, introduce Kafka extensions. No, I've probably done the commit where I did that. Git configure topic for projects, configure publish integration, broker all. What? Oh no, that's a history on that. Log. Remove unnecessary client. Store Kafka, update view to use new Kafka library, update. So I've already updated to use the new Kafka library. This is all latest version. Updated. What am I actually doing here? I want to make this a more reasonable comment. Kafka library updates, dated to latest 0.0.8 version to function, updated namespacing on tenant management domain to align with projects. Why I was inconsistent there, I have no idea. Removed topics, all services to avoid confusion. Updated console configuration. Tickets to full topics. And let's go with that. So I'm pretty happy it's working at this point. There's no running solo analysis like, we don't like the way you're doing this. Found 25 issues, including 8 blocker issues. So SolarLint is warning me about certain things. So SolarLint will only apply to files that have changed in this commit. So the more I commit, the more, yeah. Well, defaults are like this. I have the database password in the connection strings, so it's warning me about everyone. That's pretty cool. That's not an issue right this second. Remove the unused field. That's fine. Should have just clicked on SolarLint again, but whatever. Review issues. Yeah, that's bad no matter what. I'm storing the password. There's no excuse for that overall, but right this second it's not going to hurt me to do it that way. It's a local password for a local database that is produced for test, for development. It'd be bad if I committed my production system when that comes around. Solent. Remove the member initializer. Oh, because I set it. It doesn't need to be, because I don't need to. This is funny. So, possible performance issues caused by unlimited string length. Yeah. Make name read only. No, that's not what I want to do. So yeah, anyway. Commit and push. I will continue on in ignorance, Solent. There you go. This is not going to be a pull request that you would want to take. So this goes to development. So obviously the challenge now comes in that when you're building an application and you start to build external packages, right? One benefit is that any changes you want to make, you validate, because you now have to know why you're changing. So you actually have to stop and think, oh, I need to make that change. Should I make that change, etc. It gives you that pause. If you have those libraries internal to your project, it's very easy to introduce specialities, right? And that's what actually happened to me in my Kafka extensions implementation was the one I intended to use all along. I just had kind of not moved over to it yet. And I'd added some things into that to support features I needed. And it was easy to add, but then I diverged from where I was intending to go with the extensions library. Now, luckily, the changes I made were things that actually do make sense, but I did kind of hold off on, oh, where am I adding specialization, right? So I added things like the in messaging, no, it's shared, actually, shared kernel contracts, right? I have an integration event. Well, the integration event was adding event source. So, but I didn't want event source to come through into my Kafka library. So I kind of extend integration event from event now. So event is part of the Kafka library, and event ID and occurred on. So every event has its own unique identifier, right? That's okay by me, right? But it allowed me to stop. It does challenge you in that you've got now, if you need to debug something, you're stuck because it's not going to debug very cleanly because you don't have the source in the same way. So that is a challenge. So if you're working on a project internally and you're working with libraries that are essentially external, internal but external, it does give you some challenges. So, but moving over to this now is a good choice, because it does move me forward and now gets me consistent on that. So I've added the configuration. I'm not going to go through 196 files here, but I've added these events. I've done all sorts of stuff in here. The package references, the connection strings. Again, this password is local. I'm not going to panic. It shouldn't be in there. Ideally, you use a blank connection string, and that is, I could manage that in my local development instance and remove it from here. So that might be something I want to do in the future, because it's good practice. I also, as part of this, updated every other library to the latest version, so there's a lot of moving parts. This code added, now you just do add Kafka, that automatically gives me Kafka configuration. I tell it to use console to actually configure Kafka, so I can actually pull, I could actually move other things out of there. The challenge is that the producers and consumers nodes in the Kafka configuration are specific to the thing that's building. So this doesn't really, so topics is the only thing that I really want shared right this second. If there was more shared settings, I can move them out. Add Outbox Publisher. In this case, again, I'm going to configure to use a SQL Server Outbox, and then I add the service. We kind of talked about distributed services, and Milan actually posted a video, or I caught a video of Milan's yesterday after discussing this last week, on how the Outbox could be collide with each other. Because if I bring two services up on the same database and I add Outbox Publishing, then both of them will conflict, and I run the risk of publishing the messages multiple times. So there we go. That's in essence the changes that I'm making here, adding the Outbox stuff in there, adding the console configuration, which was a good positive change, I believe. So we can go ahead and create that pull request. Is building. I'm not conflicting with anybody, right? This is the sort of pull request you don't want to see during a workday, because a 196 file change without context as well is often the case, right? If you're a developer that's working in teams, right, you don't know why things have been changed necessarily. You've just got to review the changes without context. This gets difficult, so this is not the sort of PR you want to drop on teams on a regular basis. Most of this was just namespacing and obviously updates to the NuGet packages to get to the latest version of the frameworks. I believe... Do I have this working yet? The PRs I like the least are the ones where the PR's branch is behind master. I'm reviewing a request that is 40 commits behind. Oh my goodness. Those are the ones you sent to your junior. Yeah. Those are the ones where you go, oh, why did you just hit approve? Dear. So this did actually run all the unit tests, right? So I do know that the tests are passing at least. So that's only and by the way, good morning online. That's only a measure of, how confident I am a unit test are doing something meaningful, right? We only have like 150 or something tests in there right this second. But it's good enough for me for right this second. Yeah, I mean, with branches and stuff, I always worry about like the whole, so, if I run a main branch, a main is going to be what is released. I have a development branch, or even have a staging branch. Let's say I have main, staging, and development, right? Development, everything's getting merged into. Staging is the, hey, here's the next release coming up. And main is what has been released. It does get a little bit tricky to manage those flows in a multi-team environment. What practices you use. As for rebasing, merging, I just kind of, hey, I'll just merge. I've merged master in, and yeah, caused issues before. Or merged staging in and caused issues. Good morning to you as well. Back to writing an email to Athen to update latest master and make sure it build, because there are conflicts in pulling in latest master to their branch. Otherwise, I will have merged main in myself. Yeah. Yeah, the challenges of working with other people. Like, this is nice and easy. I can trust this because I've just built this, run this, etc. I know this merge is not going to create issues, being that no one else has branched off of it, right? If there was more teams, this would be a bit more scary. But anyway, let's finish with this one. I'm putting off, I'm putting, plus 381 minus 22,000. I'll go with that. There's some good changes in this one, right? So I'm happy there. I'm putting off the whole tackling of that project identifier thing, because I still think that is a challenge. What? Run npm install? No, I just removed that.
I got rid of that. Update. Yes, did get rid of that. It's gone. I just updated. I thought I'd pulled. No, just ignore me. I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, so we've cut out 4 projects. In doing that, we've pulled in some NuGet dependencies. The project is better off because of it. I now have consistency with my external library, which again, I did actually put some commands in the bot. Yes. So if you're interested in those shared libraries, those are the ones that I'm currently using as part of this project and have open sourced. I will have to end it here. Actually, if I can't find someone to raid very, very quickly, I'm going to have to just shut down because I have a doctor's appointment in a minute. I'm wondering though, is it reasonable for me to ask the devs submitting the PR to make sure their branch has latest master in it, or am I just being a snob, or whatever the word is that I'm looking for? If it's that far behind, I think it's perfectly reasonable. Yeah, ask that again in your stream later. Okay, let me. Mr. Jones, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. One Lion, Napalm, thank you for hanging out with me. Hades, if you're still around, and BFY. I appreciate everyone. So I will be back tomorrow. We're doing more of this, and yeah, we're going to raid full bots because full bots is cool. I like raiding full bots. Hey, Corey, how are you doing? Hope you're well. I gotta shut it down though. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it. Take care, and say hi to Fullbots. He's working on an awesome game, so if you can demo it, or he's making balls. But have fun. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you around. Thank you all.